Ken.
Episode 5, the word that makes giving immediately great. Take one.
That might be the single one slap you did for slating.
I think it is.
Everything else has been a double, a triple, if you will.
Every time we do this, I learn something.
What have you learned?
Not to slate more than once.
The things you've learned. I've learned deep emotional pieces, how to be a better person, how to live for Christ. You just learn about clapping.
Well, that and that I don't always look great in flannel.
It's a very good point. This gray t-shirt, phenomenal.
Much better.
But you know who does look good in flannel?
You look marvelous.
I don't want to say
Simply marvelous.
You ready to get started?
I am.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Every Day's a Bonus. Here we are, episode 5. And if you missed episode 3, that is when we explain how on earth we got this title.
Yes.
But now we're beyond episode 4, which was incredible.
That was good.
Go back and take a listen. If you're a Disney fan,
especially if you're a Disney
if you want to live for others, that's a good takeaway on that.
Live to give.
But now we're on to episode 5. Things are different now, you know?
They're very different. Life is different. Life's always changing, and it always throws you curveballs. And
it is.
Yeah.
But curveballs, lacrosse balls, basketballs. There's so many things, so many types of balls in the sports world.
There's memories, though, because your son, you said he played in the Final Four in lacrosse, right?
That's right. That's exactly
they
right.
Lost in the Final Four, but I guarantee you, he's never going to forget that.
That's true. That's true.
So good or bad, what's something in your life you're just like, man, that was an experience I will never forget?
So first of all, we're also never going to forget his blonde hair that he and the whole team decided to bleach. So that'll last for a year, right? Playoffs are for a couple weeks, but hair is for a lifetime, or at least a year.
I actually bleached my hair one time.
Did you really?
My two boys who were toddlers at the time literally cried and ran away when I walked in.
They didn't recognize you.
They did not recognize me.
And now you bleach it white, I guess. Is that
we prefer platinum gray? Yeah,
wisdom. It's wisdom in those gray hairs. There,
it's just what it is.
It's the absence of color, right? Isn't that really what gray is? The pigment is just gone.
So yeah,
that's what happens when we reach the tender old age.
Yes, those tender ages. But seriously, what's an event or an experience in your life that you thought, man, I will never forget this? And I don't want it to be like marriage or childbirth.
I know.
Or whatever.
Because it could be easily when I accepted Christ when I was in middle school.
Okay, so that was...
that's obviously number one for me. Marriage, having kids is incredible. My one big one. That is not too overly spiritual, emotional, is when we were watching the ball drop on TV. There it is. It's in New York City, and we're in Tampa, Florida, and my wife... We're just enjoying our first year of marriage. And I'm like, wouldn't it be so cool to live in New York City? And my wife said, let's do it. And that's when I was like, this is about to be the coolest marriage ever in the history of the planet. And within weeks, we had a U-Haul truck. We moved up to Manhattan. We lived there on 36th Street and 7th Avenue. We watched the ball drop the next year from the roof of New York City.
Watched it live.
Just because my wife was like, let's do it. We don't have any kids. Carrying a world, let's go have some adventures. And I think that's when I realized our family, Kirsten and I, we've passed our kids. We decided we were going to have this thing called no regrets. When you just want to do something or live for something or have this experience, have no regrets, just go make it happen. So for me, that was something that it will stick with me forever. And we still talk about and I tell people about. It's just coolest wife ever that changed the trajectory of our whole marriage right there. So how about you?
That's pretty awesome.
How about you?
One of mine was in that same category. I was not married at the time, but it's when I had decided I'm going to give this thing a shot. I was in sales and marketing, top 10 salesman in a Fortune 500 company. And I was just, it wasn't it.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I've made this money and I've done this, but there's something missing. And I really thought, if I could do anything, what would I do? And at the time, on the side, I was doing some speaking and doing a little comedy and here and there. And that kind of got a little bit of momentum to the point where I either had to let it go or do it. And I'll never forget, we're coming back from, I think it was my grandfather's funeral, and I'm sitting between my parents. Very proud parents. This is my son. He's in sales. He's super successful. And I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think I want to do comedy and speak. And I expected my parents to go, "You're an idiot."
Yeah, yeah.
And my mother, bless her ever-loving soul, she just went, "Well, you'd be a good comic." And I'm
There
like,
you go.
"Really?" And she's like, "Well, you're never going to be more single. You're never going to be younger. You're never going to. She says, "You know what? I think you should." And my dad was like, "Okay." And he's an engineer and very pragmatic. And he's like, "Yeah, well, give it a shot."
Wow. Yeah, you expect mom to do it. And my dad does it. Wow.
And I really thought, you know what? If I'm a complete failure at this, I don't want to be 40 years old going, you know what? I could have, or I should have, or I would have, but I didn't. I wanted to at least say, you know what? I flamed out and it was a wild failure, but dadgummit, I chased it hard and I did it. And lo and behold, it worked out. And I met my wife in the middle of that, where I always thought, you know, I have a successful job, and she's going, wow, there's a successful rich guy. I'd lived below the poverty level for 2 years after I left the corporate world pursuing this thing. And that's when I met my wife. So I had nothing to offer.
She fell in love with you, not for the money.
Exactly. So she gets all the royalties of everything I do now, which she well deserves. But I think it's those moments where you're just like, wow. That's important, which is kind of leading where it's there's this one word that I want to get today, but it's just within the story.
Well, I like it. Well, as I'm looking at things, it sounds like we don't have a lot of notes when we do this. It's just us talking, right?
You have notes?
It's just a chatter. I'm sitting here looking at it. I'm like, hey, we didn't even really talk about this one. So it sounds like we're going to get right to the story right now. Is that good? Hold on.
Okay, do it.
Let's get to the story right now.
There it is. Thank you. Well, I got to bring you to a place that I've alluded to in previous podcasts. My daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm not going to tell you that whole story, but one of the silver linings was I learned a word from this. So we're at the hospital. She's diagnosed. Our world is upside down, and it's just it was 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days of every bit of negative you can imagine. And but in the midst of that, I learned this word that I never forgot, and it changed me every day from then on. And the best way I can describe it is what happened. I remember coming home from the hospital. We'd been there for 2 weeks. We get back, and a buddy of mine pulls up in his landscape truck, and I said, "Hey man, how's it going?" He's like, "Great." He says, "We're praying for your daughter, but I got to tell you, I've got crews in this area. So for this year, we're going to do your grass. We're going to do your yard for the year." And I said, "Man, that's so great. If you just do it for a week and let me catch up, I'm going to figure this out." And he goes, "Well, we're going to do it for the whole year." And I said, "Well, you know, if you just do it like for a month, I know I'm going to figure this out." And he goes, "Yeah, you're really not listening. We're doing it for the whole year." What I didn't realize is that he was going to give me something I didn't know I needed. And yes, he gave me a phenomenal yard. And my yard's not terrible. It takes me about an hour and a half to get everything done. But what he gave me during that time was time. I did not know what was ahead, that we're going to average for the first, really probably the first 8 to 10 months being in the emergency room 3 times a week, you know, and not knowing when we're coming home and treatments. And he gave me that. It was those people to this day, I don't know who probably 90% of them are, that created a meal train. I didn't know what that was, but every Monday when we went to clinic, Monday night dinner was there for 2 years.
Wow.
And it was people that just did all these different acts of service, whether it was help my kids with a project or homework or get them to practice or get them home. And all these people were doing this. And here's the deal. They didn't ask, "Hey, can we do that?" They just did it. And they didn't ask for recognition. I'm telling you, probably 80% of what was done for us, I to this day don't know who did it. But they took this word. And I learned this word, and it really came to fruition that I want to do that. Now, I gotta get some clarity. I'm a nice guy. If I saw a need, I would say this and mean it. If there's anything I can do, let me know. What I realized through that time is the last thing you want to do when you're going through living hell is ask people for help. Because you don't have time, and you don't want to feel them awkward to have to say no and all that. But what all these people did was make me realize I'm going to get into your world with you. I'm going to find out what you need, and then I'm just going to do something about it. I don't need your permission. I don't need recognition. I'm just going to do it. And the word that I learned was initiative. They just took initiative. And on two fronts, I've started living this. When my daughter lost the last little bit of her hair, my wife said, hey, brace yourself when you get home. It's gone. And here's this little beautiful little blue-eyed, bald-headed 4-year-old little girl. And I come in, I say, Kennedy, I love your haircut. And she goes, thanks. And she's rubbing her head. Yeah. And she's oblivious. She doesn't care. And I said, Kennedy, I want your haircut. She said, okay. And I said, Kennedy, I want you to give it to me. Now, you haven't lived till you have a 4-year-old give you a haircut. We get out on the front porch, real buzzer, real scissors, and she's going to town. And my wife came out halfway through. She goes, oh, Lord, you look like you have mange. And I was like, I know. And it looked horrible. And she goes, I don't think I can fix it. I'm like, baby, it's coming off. Yeah. And I bicked my head clean. And I don't have a good looking head. And I don't care because my daughter was just on cloud nine. Read books and she's rubbing her head on my head going, Daddy, Mommy said my hair might grow back curly. Can I have curly hair? And I read a little bit about chemo curls and it does. And I said, yes, you can. She goes, Daddy, how's yours going to grow back? I said, baby, I just hope it does grow back. and I just learned that initiative. Yeah. Take initiative. Yeah. And can I tell you that in every day I look for a reason to do something for somebody. It's very seldom huge, but to just take the initiative. If there's a need, everybody can't do everything. Right. But everybody can do something. Yeah. And it may be as simple as seeing somebody grabbing boxes, walking in the door and running up and getting the door for them before they get there. Right. And just small or big, it's just taking initiative. Find reasons to take initiative. And I've discovered in talking to athletes, coaches, professionals, CEOs, or whatever, one of the key decisions that I see a common thread is they're the ones who just goes, man, somebody ought to do something. Yeah, yeah. And I'm somebody. You can be the one to do it. Wow. And so I would just say one of the big takeaways for today is just the next time you see or you have the thought, oh my gosh, somebody ought to do something. Do something. I love that. It doesn't have to be resolve the whole thing and solve their problem. It can just be something little. Just, hey, can I call? Can I do? Or just do something. That has made my days a bonus every time. And I can tell you, if you can do it anonymously and get no credit, it's even better. That's good. It's just something happens. So that word, the word of the day today, boys and girls, is initiative. Man. And there's a lot of I's, and I don't think I can spell it still. That's not, but you know, it reminds me of another word with I's that I thought about when you were talking about the parenting thing, shaving the head to match. And the initiative, oftentimes in the parenting world, leads to being intentional. Ooh. Like if we can be intentional with the time that we're given, the time sitting in a car with our child, we don't know what they're going through, and intentional on how we parent, how we spouse, how do we love others. If we can be intentional, we're thinking about it, and then take that initiative. You're so on it. The world can change right there. So that's okay. So I got this illustration. It just came to me. Okay. Give it to me. Everybody's got two eyes. Be intentional and take initiative. What? And smell what you're stepping in. I just wanted to do it in another sense. Listen, knees and toes. There's a lot of and taste. There's a sixth sense. That's a movie. That's a movie. But anyway, that's good stuff. Intentional but intentional. Yeah. I mean, you're right. That so works in marriage. Oh man. If being a kids pastor, we get a lot of families that come up and Mom and Dad always ask, we want to raise our kids to do this, or we're trying to do that. And that is always my answer is just be intentional in what you do. Don't miss a moment. Don't feel overwhelmed like you have to do everything. Right. But do something. Be intentional and take the initiative on doing that. So, well, there is false initiative, and I got to hit this as well. Okay. It's those who are only looking for recognition and wanting to feel good about themselves with doing nothing. I was on a flight one time, 5 hours late, and it was just, the widget switch is broken and we're sorry, it's delayed. 5 hours. And we finally take off and the pilot comes on, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for flying with us. And we're going to be cruising at 30,000 feet and blah, 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 useless information, followed by, and if there's anything we can do to make your flight more enjoyable, just send word up here to the flight deck. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, he did not mean that. So I just start doodling on this napkin, and the lady next to me didn't know it. She's reading what I'm writing.
Okay.
And she starts laughing. She laughs out loud right as a flight attendant goes by. I'm like, what's funny? And she points to my napkin, and the flight attendant stops. She goes, what are you two laughing about? Nobody on this flight is happy.
Yeah.
And she goes, look at his napkin. And so I just like show it to her. Well, she takes it and she looks at it and puts it in her apron and walks away. And I thought, well, okay. Well, I just put on there, dear Captain, the following would make my flight more enjoyable. A foot massage. A foot massage would make my flight more enjoyable. B, a barrel roll. I've never done a barrel roll. I think I would enjoy that.
I like it.
Or C, arrive on time. And so it's funny. And I thought, okay, we get to they do the final ring, tray table, seat backs, full upright position. And the flight attendant walks by and drops the napkin back in my lap. I thought, oh, she must have shown it to the others.
Please tell me it's from the pilot. Please tell me it's from the pilot.
She took it to the flight deck.
That's what I'm talking about.
And no lie. And I guess it's kind of calling him on that. Yeah. You didn't mean that. But he wrote back, he said, dear sir, would you like a left or right barrel roll?
That's awesome.
We didn't do one, but at least I called it. But it really is to just do something.
Yeah.
Just do something.
Find something. I love it. Now,
I love the intentional part. That's huge.
But I think a lot of times in my world, probably in your world, there's like, if you know the Bible, we've talked about it many times in here because that's our daily book, right? God's words written to us.
The instruction book.
Exactly. And Ephesians 2:10 talks about how we're God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he prepared in advance for us to do. But if we stop there, it's easy to be like, yeah, let's just do good works, right? That's how we're going to get to heaven. And we forget to back up 2 verses before that, right? Okay, when Ephesians 2:8-9 are talking about how, but it's by faith that we're saved, right? Not the works so that nobody can boast, right? It's by him and believing in him. And so I think some people are like, okay, I'm going to go do these good things. That's going to earn me a spot in heaven. And that's not how God designed it at all. But when we do follow him, when we do live our life for him, when we live for a higher purpose, we will want to do those good works just to show that love to others, right? To love others the way he's instructed. But man, what a great way to live life like that.
What you just shared was what released the guilt for me. Because I'm like, okay, I got to do how much is good and how much is good enough. And and I learned that he's prepared ahead of time. Yeah. And I started to realize when I see a situation where somebody ought to do something.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the only one that sees that. And that's what he prepared ahead of time for me. So I'm like, okay. And if I miss it and I do it anyway, okay. Yeah. It takes the pressure off and the joy's in there. And it's just really awesome.
Yeah, there's no reason to keep a checklist of I've done this many good things. Ooh, this many bad things. No.
There's even times I can do good things that don't work out. And you mentioned that with your wife. I actually did this. And so my son's married 2 years. He's a great husband. I'm like, man, I got to up my game. So we're driving Saturday morning. We're going to go hike the mountain, stop by Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes. Amen.
And I thought, you know what? I'm going for it. And I just look over. I said, Heather. She goes, yeah. I said, I love you. She was like, oh my gosh, thank you. But then she said, what made you think of that? And I'm sitting there with this just deer in headlights look. I'm saying, well, I was driving and I saw you and I thought I love her. So I said it. I didn't know there was going to be a test, And here's taking intentionality, being intentional, taking initiative. It doesn't always work out the way we think, but it's always good. So I tried to, 2 weeks later, I tried again, and it sounded so good in my head, and it just didn't come out right. We're driving, we're going. I said, hey, she goes, yeah. I said, I love you, but I don't know why.
Wait a second. Hold on. Rewind this.
So much better in my head.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. It's best just to start off with, honey, I'm sorry. Before I say anything, honey, I'm sorry. Here's what I'm going to say now. Yeah.
No, but she's the smartest one. So I actually tried third time's a charm, right? And I literally said this. I said, hey, I know you could have married somebody better looking, somebody richer. But you couldn't marry somebody that loves you more and wants to make you happy like I do. And she looked at me and she paused, and then she pondered and pondered, and she went, I agree. And I'm like,
thank you.
Okay, never mind. I'm done there. So being intentional.
That's good.
I'm going to tell you though, she's amazing. And those who are recipients of our initiative and our intentionality, that's the win.
Yeah.
That's the win.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, as you know, we've got a YouTube channel called Westridge Kids. It's on YouTube. And we did a video just a few weeks ago.
Are most YouTube channels on YouTube?
Yeah, that's a very good point. YouTube channel is on YouTube this time around.
I work at the Department of Redundancy.
That's exactly. We love to say it. Squared. YouTube squared. But on there, we did a video called How to Get to Heaven. And we talk about Ephesians 2, 8, 9, and 10 and how it can be taken out of context. And it's in a funny way, but if your family's wanting to watch that, How to Get to Heaven, go there and check it out because it's a funny way of explaining to kids, young adults alike, of how to truly get there. But man, what a great way to land your plane, barrel roll and all, right or left.
Intentional landing.
It is what it is. So, and maybe for you guys out there, your wife asks you, hey, what are you thinking about? The answer is okay to be like, nothing. Nothing. There's nothing in here right now. I'm not thinking about anything, right?
I will share the secret to answering that question to women next week. That's
what I'm talking about. That's what we need. Thank you for that, Ken. Well, guys, we're landing the barrel roll plane right here. Thank you so much for joining us. Every day is truly a bonus, and it's a bonus when you join us here each and every week. So
solve a problem every couple's ever faced. Next podcast.
That's exactly right. Don't you dare miss it. So say goodbye, Ken.
Goodbye, Ken.
We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.